The image you have of Thanksgiving pilgrims, Indians, a big happy feast, it's mostly a myth. The real story is far more complex, political, and frankly, more interesting. It wasn't one dinner, but a series of events, struggles, and strategic calculations that shaped a nation. To understand Thanksgiving, we need to forget the Hallmark cards and travel back to a world of desperation, disease, and diplomacy. The journey begins not in America, but in England, with a group of religious separatists. We call them the Pilgrims, but they called themselves saints. Persecuted for their radical beliefs, they fled first to Holland, but they feared losing their English identity. So, in 1620, financed by London investors hoping for a profit, 100 passengers crammed onto the Mayflower, a ship no bigger than a modern-day tennis court. Their destination was Virginia, but storms blew them disastrously off course. They landed at Cape Cod, hundreds of miles north, with no legal right to be there. Winter was coming. Before even stepping ashore, they drafted the Mayflower Compact. It wasn't a declaration of independence, but a desperate social contract to prevent mutiny and chaos. They agreed to form a civil body politic, a government based on consent. A radical idea for its time, born from pure necessity. That first winter was brutal. They lived aboard the Mayflower while scrambling to build crude shelters. Scurvy, pneumonia, and starvation ran rampant. By spring, half of them were dead. They buried their dead at night in unmarked graves. To hide their dwindling numbers from any watching eyes, the Pilgrims were weak, isolated, and on the brink of total failure. But they weren't alone. The land they called New Plymouth was Patuxet, part of the Wampanoag Nation, a confederation of dozens of tribes. The Wampanoag had their own problems. A few years earlier, a catastrophic epidemic, likely brought by European traders, had wiped out up to 90% of the coastal population. Entire villages vanished. This great dying created a massive power vacuum, leaving the Wampanoag vulnerable to their powerful rivals, the Narragansett tribe. Their leader, the Sagamore-Ousamequin, also known as Massasoit, watched the English newcomers with caution. They were weak, but they had guns. He saw not a threat, but a potential pawn in a dangerous political game. He decided to make contact. He sent Samoset, an Abenaki Sagamore who had learned some English from fishermen, to greet them. A week later, he sent to Squantum, or Squanto. Squanto's story is incredible. He was from Patuxet, the very village the Pilgrims were now occupying. He had been kidnapped years earlier, taken to Spain to be sold into slavery, escaped to London, and finally made his way back home, only to find his entire community gone, wiped out by the plague. He was the last of his people. As the sole survivor who spoke fluent English, he became the indispensable bridge between two worlds. He taught the struggling Pilgrims how to plant corn, fish for eels, and survive in this new environment. By the autumn of 1621, thanks to Squanto's help and a decent harvest, the 50 or so surviving Pilgrims had reason to celebrate. They had food to last the winter. Governor William Bradford declared a harvest festival. This is the event we picture as the first Thanksgiving. But it wasn't a religious Thanksgiving in their terms. That was a solemn day of prayer and fasting. This was a secular harvest celebration. Massasoit arrived with 90 of his warriors, far outnumbering the Englishmen. This wasn't just a friendly dinner party, it was a political summit. The Wampanoag didn't just show up for a meal, they contributed 5 deer to the feast. For 3 days, the two groups ate together, played games, and demonstrated their military strength. It was a display of mutual power and the cementing of a fragile, strategic alliance. An alliance that would last for 50 years. But this single feast wasn't the origin of our national holiday. Days of Thanksgiving were sporadically declared for various reasons over the next century and a half to celebrate military victories, or The end of a drought. It was a regional custom, mostly in New England. The idea of a national Thanksgiving Day comes much later. During the American Revolution, the Continental Congress declared several days of Thanksgiving. In 1789, George Washington issued the first presidential Thanksgiving proclamation, urging Americans to be grateful for their victory and new Constitution. But even then, it wasn't an annual event. Some presidents, like Thomas Jefferson, thought it violated the separation of church and state. So who made it the holiday we know? A woman named Sarah Josepha Hale, the influential editor of a popular women's magazine. For decades, she campaigned relentlessly, writing letters to president after president, arguing that a national day of unity could help heal a country increasingly divided over slavery. Finally, in 1863, in the darkest days of the Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln listened. He saw the strategic value. He declared the last Thursday in November National Day of Thanksgiving. He wasn't looking back to the Pilgrims. He was trying to unite a fractured nation, calling on all Americans, North and South, to give thanks for the blessings of the nation, even as they were at war with each other. The now famous Pilgrim story was attached later. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, as millions of immigrants arrived from Southern and Eastern Europe, some Americans sought a unifying national origin story. They romanticized the 1621 feast, creating the simplified, peaceful myth of pilgrims and Indians sharing a meal. It was promoted in schools and popular culture as an assimilation tool, a story of how different people came together to become American. The date was even moved. In 1939, Franklin D. Roosevelt shifted Thanksgiving a week earlier to extend the Christmas shopping season, a move so unpopular it was mocked as Franksgiving. After 2 years of confusion, Congress officially set the date as the fourth Thursday in November, where it remains today. So, the Thanksgiving on your calendar isn't just about a 17th century harvest meal. It's a holiday born from desperation, shaped by diplomacy, and codified by a president in the midst of civil war. It's a testament to a 19th century editor's persistence and a 20th century need for a shared American identity. The real story is a mashup of history, politics, and marketing. It's a story of survival, alliances, and the complex, ongoing creation of America itself. Thanks for watching.